getting ready for our first fight of the night, the first of 13. Rich Reynolds along with Chris Garrity, Gerald Mearshart, GM3. The machine's going to be joining us in a little while as well as we take you through the night. Glad you could join us on this beautiful spring night, a great night. Yes, Saturday night is all right for fighting tonight, and we are going to start with some amateur fights tonight. Hector Velez making his way to the cage right now and being checked out as he gets ready to step into the cage this evening. And really kind of a different feel tonight. It's the first time in a long time, I guess, that we're not seeing Mark Lemminger at the top of the card. Mark is getting over that last fight that we had on Chosen Few Fighting Championships number 10. So a little bit different main event, a little bit different feel tonight. It's not a winter crowd, it's a spring crowd that's going to be warming up to this one. Velez, again, making his way to the cage, and let's take a look now at Max Nelson. All right, awaiting the arrival now of one Max Nelson, fighting out of Adrian Serrano Combat Sports Gym, and we have seen fighters from that gym over our last few times out here at the Monona Terrace Convention Center, and they always come ready. So we are expecting that from Max Nelson as well, as he gets set to square off against Hector Velez, the first of 13 fights here tonight. As we will go up, as you take a look at the tail of the tape again, we will go up to the cage as they will be squaring off tonight at 150 pounds.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, our first bout of the evening is an amateur bantamweight contest scheduled for 3 rounds. Introducing first the man fighting out of the Coliseum Bar red corner. He stands in at 5'9" tall. He weighed at 133.2 pounds. He hails from San Juan, Puerto Rico, and represents Red Schaefer Mixed Martial Arts, Hector Velez. His opponent is this man, fighting out of the blue corner. He hails from Wauwatosa, Wisconsin, and is making his amateur debut right here for the Chosen Few. He represents Adrian Serrano Combat Sports Gym. Ladies and gentlemen, standing in at 5'7" tall, weighing in at 133.8 pounds, Mad Max Nelson.
All right, both of our fighters are wearing red trunks tonight. Do not let that confuse you. You see that scorpion of Serrano Gym as Max Nelson making his debut here this evening. He looks focused. We are ready. It is the first fight of 13 tonight, and here we go. Nelson and Velez squaring off, and Chris. Yeah, and talking about the Serrano Gym, I talked about that scorpion a little bit, and we're kind of familiar, as you've been watching the Chosen Few here on 57 Sports, about Serrano Gym. And we've seen some very good fighters coming out of there, and Max Nelson making his debut, hoping to be in that same kind of category that other Serrano fighters have been and what we have seen in the past. Also, Hector Velez, that's in the cage right now, representing Red Schaefer Gym. We know a lot about them, don't we?
In the UFC and other mixed martial arts. But with Hector Velez is another good test for him. We can see if he can get off the schneid and get that first win.
So Velez standing in there now as a good kick to the ribs of Nelson. A 3-round fight, 3 minutes each. We're going to see a lot of those, a lot of AMI fights here this evening as both fighters now looking for a takedown, and it's going to be Nelson who gains the edge.
You know, this is where Hector wants to be, though. You can see the way he was throwing punches on his feet. It was all to set up a takedown. And now, of course, he doesn't weigh on the bottom with Max Nelson, but I think he's more comfortable here. As you can see, moving his hips over right now for the armbar. And that's looking pretty tight right now, Rich.
Looks like he's got that armbar on and dragging Nelson down. Nelson is in trouble here early on in round number 1. Nelson
like
trying
Nelson
to hang up.
He might be a little double-jointed, Rich.
Yeah, look at his shoulder there. It looks like it's almost popped out, but he is still hanging on. Unbelievable intestinal fortitude here by Nelson. That armbar has been planted in there pretty good by Velez, but Nelson opting not to tap out. He is still going.
You know, he's doing the right thing, though. He's staying patient, make sure he's not losing the position he has with Nelson. He needs to grab that leg, kind of control him a little bit. That's a good job from Max Nelson getting heavy and losing the leg, although looks like Velez, no, he's lost it again. Joining us right now, the machine, Gerald Mearshart, UFC fighter. Gerald, how you been?
I've been great. It's great to be here, Chris. Good seeing you again.
It is good to see you, too. Gerald and I go way back. I think I called probably, your first 10 fights?
At least the first 10, for sure.
But Gerald's been doing this a long time. Started at Strasser's, went up to the Aguilars, went up with Faircloth and the boys up to Green Bay. Now you've settled into Rufus Sport, basically a gym of champions. Tell us a little bit about Rufus Sport and what the change has been and how, with mixed martial arts, you've developed and how the game has kind of transitioned the way it is now.
I mean, it's a great environment over there at Rufus Sport. I've kind of stayed in Wisconsin. I usually follow where the big show fighters are, and it just so happened at this point it's at Rufus Sport, and we got a really good team behind there.
A lot of action on the mat. We will come back, talk more with the machine. GM3 is here. Glad you've joined us for Chosen Few Fighting Championships, number 11 here on 57 Sports. All right, taking a look at some of the replays and the action from round number 1, and a lot of it was on the mat, Chris.
Well, like I said, that's exactly where Hector wanted to be. His submission game is obviously a lot better than his stand-up game. The way he was kind of pawing his punches out there, looking for a takedown, you could tell that's what he wanted. Now he ended up on the bottom, which isn't normally where fighters like to be, but you saw he was quickly able to throw in that arm bar. Looked pretty tight, but you got to give it to Max Nelson because that elbow was bent pretty nasty. Like you said, you saw the shoulder in bad shape too. So good for Max to get out of that, come out less worse for the wear than he could have been.
Yeah, we don't know if that's the case, if he's double jointed or not, but if he is, that's a bit of an advantage, I would imagine, in a situation like that. So both fighters back up on their feet here in the start of round number 2. Again, the first fight of the evening, going all the way to our main event of Gilpin and Compton, as Alex Gilpin making his first professional title defense.
Now, Nelson looks like he's cut a little bit in his left eye. I don't know exactly when that happened, but you can see a little bit of blood, a little bit of swelling right under the eyebrow.
Yeah, in round number 1, it definitely looked like Velez got the better of Nelson. Again, Nelson making his debut. Do you remember making your debut, Gerald?
It was a little bit ago, but I do remember making my debut. You know, the sport's come a long way since then. These two fighters look really ready to fight.
Yeah, with amateurs these days, and the fact that you have to be amateur, at least I think in some states, minimum 5 wins before they let you turn pro. Back in the day, I remember calling one of Gerald's fights where we would show up, and I'd be handed an old envelope with about 20 names on it, and they'd be like, here, just match the card and let's go. So not even the fighters knew who they were going to fight. You just picked the closest weight classes possible, and then you'd put the guys in the cage and let them go. In the ring and let them go at it. That was even before we were using cages. So.
Wow. Sports definitely come a long way since then, and both fighters seem to be very ready for this. And especially Nelson, again, making his debut. Looks pretty comfortable in there so far as we're into round number 2. Good overhand right there by Velez. And now it's Nelson going in for the takedown as he takes Velez to the side of the cage.
So, Gerald, walk us through this position as he's right here looking to mount him. How much is him being against the cage going to impede him from getting that full mount? Well, now he's looking like he's taking his back anyways here.
Yeah, it's going to hurt him a little bit from taking full mount, but he does have a little more control in that his opponent can't turn both directions. He only has one way he can really use to escape this position. And right now he's trying to use the wall to his advantage to, as you can see, keep his opponent towards the center of the cage so he can land his strikes and keep him controlled there with his hips.
Definitely not the position Hector wants to be in. You could tell he can't strike from where he is, and he is taking some damage. I was actually a little worried when Nelson took him down because of the trouble that Velez had him in that first round, but obviously he's not worried too much about the submission game because he was able to get out of that arm bar, and now he just controlled in one round number 2.
Nelson looking much more comfortable here in round number 2, landing blows with that left hand, has the top control against the wall, and that is the bell for the end of round number 2. We'll come back for the conclusion of this one. Nelson and Velez, you're watching CFFC number 11 on 57 Sports. All right, just about set for round number 3, and so far, I think we'd probably say we're at a round apiece for these guys right now, eh?
Yeah, on my scorecard, I do have it a round apiece. 1 to Hector Velez in the first round. Max Nelson definitely took the second round with his top control. I think we can agree it is a even fight at this point. So this round is definitely going to decide it.
So good action to start off our night here tonight. Again, the first of 13 fights here this evening, and Nelson definitely showing well in his debut, going for the takedown once again after striking well early in the fight, and now he is once again trying to take down Velez, and he does.
And I like that kick that Velez threw right before he got taken down. He had caught the thigh of Nelson, and it buckled his knee again. He had done that previously in the fight, so you could tell Nelson just wants his fight in the ground. He's not going to stand up with Velez at all.
All the action happening right in front of us right now as Nelson looking to free up an arm maybe to do some striking. He gets that right arm free and gets a couple of shots in right now. So what's happening here? How does Velez get out of this?
Well, right now, Velez has his right arm hooked over the top of Nelson's head. He's got to let go of that and start shrimping, making space with his hips and creating a little gap for him to get his legs underneath him and try to walk up the cage and get back to his feet where he's winning the fight. Now we see Nelson doing a good job here, keeping good pressure, keeping his head down on top of him. Anytime he feels a little space coming up, he'll put his chest down, put his head down, and block the escape.
And using that left into the side of the ribs of Velez. Now he lands a shot to the temple of Velez, and Velez been on his back for a while here in round number 3. It is probably the decisive round. We got it a round apiece as Velez fighting out of it, but Nelson back quickly to smother Velez once again.
And Velez did a good job getting it back to guard. The problem is he's stuffed up against the cage here, so he's not going to really be able to throw much of a submission from this point. He needs to somehow, like Gerald was saying, separate, get this back on the feet. He was easily winning the fight on the feet, even though he did hook that submission in the first round. But right here, he's going to take a loss if he stays here any longer.
He's got to get out of this. Nelson also doing a good job using that left forearm, driving it into the head of Velez. Again, all the action happening right in front of us. I don't think we had this much action in front of us at all in the last card. So this is amazing that it's happening right here, and a lot of jockeying for position. Good damage being dealt here by Nelson in the third round.
You know, credit to both these fighters. We can see Velez on the bottom. He's constantly working for submissions, even though he's in a precarious spot right now. He hasn't given up on the fight. Nelson's still working to advance his position and land some devastating strikes. So this is really good work from two amateurs in their first fight.
Nelson also using his left knee into the ear of Velez as well. Final 10 seconds here of the third and final round, and that will do it. That means we will have to go to the scorecards, but Max Nelson feeling pretty good about it. We'll come back and get the official decision here from the Nona Terrace on 57 Sports.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, before we get to an official decision, one more round of applause for a great first fight of the evening. After 3 rounds of bantamweight action, we go to the judges' scorecards for a split decision. Judge Janisek scores the bout 29-28, Velez. Judge Sabata scores the bout 29-28, Nelson. Judge Strut scores the bout 29-28 in favor of your winner by split decision, Fighting out of the blue corner, Max Nelson.
Mad Max Nelson wins it in a split decision. So a little bit of controversy here in our first fight, but I think they got it right, and Nelson walks away with the victory. Our next fight's going to be at 155. We got that next. You are watching the Chosen Few Fighting Championship, and you are watching Wisconsin's 57 Sports.